button has said and it is live now. Now that I'm actually in front of my microphone, we can get started. Welcome, everybody, to Gab Hominem. This is going to be another very fun episode this week because this week I have the one, Mr. Belsheber Rusape Jr., otherwise just known as Bell, I believe you like to be called usually.
You just said my full name perfectly, by the way. Thank you very much.
I wasn't sure if I had to roll the R at all in any way.
No. How you said it already, that was just perfect.
I'm glad I managed to get that. For me, it's usually fun to see all kinds of different names and try to figure out, first of all, figure out about what region the name would be from, and then try my best to pronounce it correctly there.
That is fair. That is totally fair. But to just know that most other people would normally butcher it much worse. Ooh. I've had people actually insert A's when they try to pronounce my name, and I'm like, no. Do you see an A? There's my last name is the only part that actually has an A in it, and that's not the one that actually gets the mix-ups. It's usually my first name. It's what? Where did that come from?
It's for me one of the most fun names to try to get correctly was actually an Italian name. There was a stream I did a number of months back with my co-host. He's usually on the show, but he's been busy getting himself set up in Boston lately for a music school he just got to.
Oh, congrats!
But we were talking about the life and death of Gianni Versace. The designer from the 80s and 90s. And when you get his full name, it is quite a mouthful.
Oh my god.
It is I think he has 4 different names.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that was fun. I guess I'm thankful though that it's not I'm not trying to say the full name of Picasso. I have lost track of how many names that guy has, so.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's absurd. But your name is, at least to me, at least easier to figure out and hope that I got it right.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. You know, folks like me with very complicated names, we really appreciate knowing that there are people out there who don't really see it that bad.
Well, I do try my best. I hope people would actually correct me if I get it wrong. But
of course.
Yeah. But yeah, this is going to be a fun episode because Bell is a voice actor, and not only that, but also, if I'm remembering correctly, you also write voice demo reels for other voice actors, right?
Mm-hmm.
That must have gotten you to meet a lot of very interesting people. Which I would assume also means you have heard a lot of different voice ranges.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a long journey, but honestly, I do enjoy. One of my favorite things, absolutely, when it comes to writing a voice demo is getting to understand the actor personally and what they're capable of, but also the mindset they go into when it comes to performing a character. Because my biggest concern, really, and this is something that, without throwing shade at other demo reels, how do I articulate this? Okay, so so back when I was back in middle school, because middle school is when I got my huge inspiration to kind of research into voiceover and stuff like that. Those kids that would listen to voice demos of their favorite voice actors all over the place, and it was just it was so much fun getting to learn the jack of the trade from every actor, what they're capable of doing. But as I got older, especially when I was entering college, I was starting to notice, especially since I was starting to get my own demo reels done, the lack of variety there tends to be. Oftentimes you'll see actors have voices placed in sort of tropes and trends, just to kind of show you which sort of which sort of archetype that they would fit. It's another way of saying it is what their typecast would be. What kind of voice do you often hear, and which kind of actor do you think is able to pull that specific voice that's at the top of your head right now? it's pretty much like something that you want, like just like that, essentially.
Right.
But I also wanted to like give it some flair because I was noticing a lack of variety in dialogue. So I wanted to kind of give demo reels that I was writing at the time a certain flair to them. Like I know, like I was receiving some good tips on like how to write for a demo reel, especially like making sure people understand the plot, who the character is, what their deal is, and essentially any other important information that pertains to the story that's being contained within like a 15-second spot in a demo reel.
Right. If I'm recalling correctly from what I have been able to learn in the last year of taking on voice acting, a demo reel is basically supposed to showcase the strongest points of your acting and basically the kind of range that you do have vocally, but it's also a demonstration of your acting ability in general.
Exactly. That's the perfect summation of it, basically.
Yeah.
It's not just about how good you are as a voice, but also as like, especially as an actor, because it's still acting at the end of the day. Because if it was just about the voice, then most other people would just kind of like, because most other people who aren't in voiceover often would just assume that it's just like doing funny voices, yeah. But like, there's an art to it. There's understanding what a character is, what makes a character, how to really get into character, and the limitations you have on your voice, and like how to really work around them. Because not everyone's voice is the same, and not every person is able to do every voice. And I personally do not like the idea that, oh, because you're a voice actor, you must know how to do other people's voices. That's not the best mentality to really have. You should focus on like understanding your voice and what makes you stand out from everyone else. Like, what exactly is it that you can do that I wouldn't say that no one else can do, because like most of us can still do like a similar type of voice. It's just like how you can effectively do it in a way that really makes you stand out from the crowd. Like, how much energy do you have as a performer? How well do you read a certain character? Because diction and reading comprehension can also play a huge factor. Because like sometimes you could have like 3 people going for the same role, they all sound really good, but one actor can just have like this really incredible way of reading a character and just like adding some subtle nuances to them. Like that could just like really sell the role for you as a director. Like, it's honestly subtle touches as well that just really instill this sort of greater understanding that perhaps like demo reels can also provide. But also you have to understand you're on a time limit with a demo reel, so it's all about like conveying that properly in the limited time that you have with each voice. But understand, like, it's not just you going one voice, then one voice, then one voice, then one voice, then one voice. It's you have all the time in the world to really work on it gradually. It's an edited process anyway, so don't feel like you're being constrained.
Right. That's it. That's kind of like the basic idea of what a voice demo reel is like meant to do. So I think we're gonna start now with the whole podcast in asking the same question that I usually ask most of my guests when I have them on. I'd like to try to get to know my guests a little bit more, and I think it kind of establishes a little bit of context as to who we're talking with. So the question for you is, as much as you're comfortable sharing, where are you from, and what kind of experiences have you had that kind of like shaped who you are today?
Well, I was born in Zimbabwe, but when I was really, really, really young, we moved over to the States, and that's where I've been living my entire life to this point. And overall, I wouldn't say I have the most ventured life, because essentially it's just like we didn't have all the money in the world, and we were just kind of like we moved a lot too. So essentially it's just like it's essentially just working with what you have around the area. But thankfully with TV and extracurricular activities and all that other stuff, like it, as well as the internet, thank God, it gives you a chance to really explore new things that you may not have, the money or the time to really venture into. Because not everyone is the most well endowed when it comes to pockets.
Hmm.
So you have to work with what you have. And if you can learn new things just by, researching them, then that's perfectly fine too.
Right.
I'm not the most experienced person in the entire world. I wish, but I'm fine with where I am today. But I do like learning new things, especially like really creative, new creative ventures. Like when I was in from middle school to high school, I was in orchestra and I really loved music. So getting to actually play an instrument really did give me like a good foundation for like how to really see music and like playing music in general. And it also like trained my ears to really be more aware of certain things, like, audibly.
Right.
So that's where I kind of just like started. That's where I kind of like started and initially venturing into audio. Now, granted, I didn't have the most experience with audio. It was just more me once in a while just dabbling with it. And well, later on, I eventually realized that writing was more so my passion because ever since school, I was always passionate about just writing new stories and ideas like everywhere I went. Like I would always have papers jotted down of cool ideas that I had on standby.
Right.
It was always something interesting to really really get into. And so through demo reels, I was given the opportunity of really venturing into my own personal creativity. And so I think around 2019 was when I actually started, taking commissions for scripting. And I think my first official client for scripting was the voice actor John Patnode, who is an amazing guy, by the way. Like I owe him a lot for helping me get my starts when it came to scripting, like, legit scripting. Because it's like through him, Patrick Mealy, Eddie Young, and many other amazing folks, like I was given the opportunity of really exploring the process of like scripting for a demo reel while at the same time understanding each trope and how to deconstruct them, because I understand that it's important for clients to know, like, for example, if they have a specific genre they want to cast for, which voices in particular they want to hear. But at the same time, I want to give it a personal touch for the actor themselves, because
Right.
this is their demo reel. This is a way to show their best foot. So giving them the chance to really explore venues that they want to in the future, like if they got cast for something, I want to give that to them. I want to be able to like write something that they can personally relate to and that they can actually like give their 100%, their all in, or at the very least, even if they move on to like hiring other people for a different demo reel altogether, I want to at least give them like a good foot in the door.
You like to help them
Like
leave
for like
leave a
demo.
good impression. Sounds like,
Exactly. It's
yeah.
like a first understanding of like how a demo reel can be, constructed, so that later on they can get a better one down the line, even if I have no involvement of it. Speaking of which, that's the reason why I made the recommendation section in my commission page, because I know I'm not the only person in the universe doing writing commissions and all that jazz. So it's understandable that maybe my style doesn't work for everyone. So I have other people on standby for other options, as well as other mixers, other directors, coaches, just general peeps who have like a very thorough understanding of the industry and acting in general.
Right.
It's just all these people that if you want someone to help you out, especially for a demo reel, you know where to find them.
Because it kind of sounds like you want to do your part to kind of help somebody along and whatever path they're following, even if it's
Mhm.
not even if it's not specifically voice acting. It kind of sounds like you want to somebody help reach the best that they can be at whatever it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You really
Um,
said it poetically.
and with that, you said you have a section of resources to check out, in case people were curious, because it sounds like, um, when it comes to making a voice demo reel, obviously it's not enough to just have the writing there. You still have to do your voice, and then you still have to put it together. And in some cases,
Exactly.
it's probably better to leave it in the hands of I think it's an audio. Is it an audio engineer that usually does that, or is that a different title I'm looking for?
Basically an audio engineer. Yeah, it's like essentially you have the writer, the mixer, or i.e. the audio engineer,
Mm-hmm.
and a voice director.
Okay.
It while yes, you can technically make your own demo reel, it is better kind of having like a small team to
Mm-hmm.
help you out with it. And essentially like, over time, that's pretty much like become the norm with demo reel productions, because back in the day, a lot of us kind of had to make our own demo reels, and
Mm.
coming from experience, those don't end well.
No.
Oh god, like it came to the point where it was like before I got my first ever professionally made demo reel, I kind of just like stopped doing like mixing the audio. I just kind of like left it as raw audio for a while, and then like I kind of made my own sort of quote unquote interactive demo reel, which back then I thought that was just like all my previous roles combined into one. I didn't know at the time interactive demo reel was a synonymous term for video game demo reel. Yeah, that was a learning process, but give it time. But yeah, essentially, that was my biggest demo reel at the time until I hired Extra Terrible Studios to make my first ever official character demo reel. And that's where I got my full understanding of like how to really put together a demo reel, especially how a team puts together a demo reel.
Okay.
And I really do appreciate them for helping me out with that. But another thing that I learned as time went on, especially now that I've had experience working with a company to really produce a demo reel, I also learned that yeah, you kind of have to gauge your own budget when it comes to demo reels. Like that's not to say that just because someone charges a lot of money to produce your reel that they're not good. It's just that not everyone can afford hundreds of dollars worth of demo reels, and that I can personally attest to. We like sometimes it's good to like know people who have the experience to really help you out, as opposed to like shilling money that you'd probably be saving to like get some coaching or like continue like working on your craft or like building up your home setup.
Yeah.
And oh, quick detour. So when it comes to the home setup, it's always good to know. It's always good to know. You should always have your setup. Your audio should be good. Your raw audio should be clean, as clean as possible before you get a demo reel. Because if your audio is not that good, the mix is really not going to be good because it reflects poorly in
Yeah.
the end. Like you can't mix audio that is trash into the workflow of an audio engineer who's had years of experience. Because as someone who has heard several microphones out there who've kind of sounded not that good compared to everyone else,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of yeah, it doesn't bode well.
Yeah,
So
sometimes it can get difficult to work with that kind of audio. Like I talked with Stamper before, and he had told me about a couple of projects he had tried to work on, and he said like one example he brought up is like, okay, here's the file, everything sounds perfect, and you can hear like an AC unit blasting in the background right behind the guy's head as he's holding it up to his iPhone to record it.
oh my god.
And it's like, yeah, it's an audio engineer. My co-host has described them as, magicians who can work miracles with sound, but that they still have their limits.
Like they're not God. Like they
Yeah.
can't just they can't like the raw audio still has to sound good. Like it has to still sound clear enough where you can work with it. And that I feel like is something we don't say often, where the raw audio still has to be good. You can't just like turn out a terrible product and then just expect everyone else to just work with it perfectly fine. Like
Right.
you can't, because you can't expect, and it also reflects even worse like when it comes to your clients, because how can you have really terrible home studio quality and then a good voice demo but then you're not even able to use the setup that you used to record for the demo reel. Like it's
Yeah.
just that is something that never made sense to me when it came to actors who didn't have a home studio, but they would always like record in studios. It's
Hmm.
just, at some point you're gonna have to. This was before the pandemic,
Right.
so at some point it might be better to just have your own home studio instead of shilling hundreds of dollars into other studios. Like it would save you tons of money doing that. Just saying. I've met people who've done that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And you know what? Pandemic hits. Well, look who told you so.
I'm sure people who make audio equipment of all different kinds, not just microphones, but also what's that piece of equipment?
Audio
Audio
interfaces.
interface. Thank you. The microphones, audio interfaces, the cables, acoustic panels, and the foam and all that. People who make all of that must be making a killing right now.
Oh, they were freaking making bank like the moment, because the audio interface I currently use, the SSL2 audio interface, many places were going out of stock on that
Ooh.
one. That was a huge seller. Like I was hearing some studio peeps, some like heavily professional peeps who were just like in the industry way longer than I have. They were like saying, get the SSL to audio interface, get the SSL to it. It's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna be taking that for myself. And I had to be sure.
Yeah,
I had to be sure I was getting them on stock instead of like trying to find out ips.
See, when I got started with this, I got my current setup because I started another podcast a while back, and I decided I wanted to try to make it sound like I'm not recording on a really cheap headset from the '90s. And so
Hey.
at first, I borrowed a condenser mic from my brother, and one of the other people on the same co-host from this show, he's also on there. We're testing around with the audio on it. He tells me, like, what do you have on that microphone? Because this sounds kind of dull. And we're like, well, I've got this foam, like, sock thing that's over it. Like, take that off.
I know, right?
And I take it off, and it sounds better. But then I go and get an audio interface, the PreSonus Audio Box. Yeah, USB 96 is the specific one that I have. Only $100. Comes with its own DAW and, a couple other, like, extensions for it. Great value for only $100.
Yeah.
And then gets the job done. And then after a while of doing that, I decide, you know what? I want to invest a little bit into something that's a little nicer. And so I eventually went around looking for I decided I was going to try to get the Rode NT1, right? No store in my area has it.
Oh my God.
And like I don't think there were even any stores that had the AT 2020.
Oh, Jesus.
It was nuts. So I decided, you know what? Okay, so there's this local music store in my area. I'm gonna check what they have, and they have the NT1A, which I'm hearing is basically the same thing.
I heard it's a really good microphone.
People say it carries like it does like a quote unquote warmer recording tone, but I tried to listen.
Okay, yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to listen and I could not hear an actual difference myself, but maybe my ears are not as fine tuned as others, so. I went with the NT1A. That's what I have. I gave the old one back to my brother. And that's kind of where I'm at now. But eventually, over time, it's going to have to go into more to work with. Like, I'm building my own acoustic panels to try to control the acoustics in my room.
Right.
Because if I were to definitely try to shout, like a shouting line or something, you can hear that slight, like, reverberation in the background. So these panels are supposed to work with that. And because I'm still limited on money, I've only built 2 of these 2x4 panels so far.
Oh, damn.
But the plan is to eventually have enough to make an enclosed space around me, I'm hoping at least 4x4, an internal space. But from advice from another voice actor, if you've heard of Jun Yoon.
Oh, yeah, June is a wonderful fella.
I remember asking him the question. He says, a taller recording space is, definitely beneficial, but go for a rectangular space, not a square one. I'm like, this guy apparently really knows what he's talking about.
He does. He really does.
So that's part of the goal, but that still goes into, it still kind of loops back around to what we were talking about earlier, is that you're still going to need to spend some money to have what would be at least somewhat considered a professional recording setup.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'd rather pay to play that way than pay to play on most sites where they ask for $200 to get
Yeah.
$200 auditions, and I'm like, no, no,
Yeah,
no. I'm
that's
sorry,
I
no,
can
but
I can justify going for that if I know I'm stable through the voice acting career,
preach.
but that goes into another thing that I've talked to. One of my first guests was Crystal Laporte and Chris Ayers, and they both brought up it's very rare for any voice actor to be financially stable on voice acting alone. Most of them you hear of already have another like day job that they use to support themselves, or they're living with
True.
others. So it's kind of that, like, find that balance, sort of like you'll know you're ready to go for the next step when you start seeing more of that work coming in. Like, especially, obviously you want to try to get paid for your work, but as June had said it before, be smart about it, save the money, and then take the next step once you're set to go for it. And
Right.
when it comes to hiring other people to help you with your voice demo, that's usually where that old adage of you get your money's worth kind of comes in. It's the same idea for when you get a guitar. The higher price guitars are usually the really nicer ones that do a whole lot more, sound a lot better. I think the same idea kind of applies to making a voice demo reel. You'll have, ideally you want to hire someone to write a demo reel script for you that really accentuates. Wow, what the hell did my tongue do there?
Yeah, accentuates.
It really does that for your voice, your range, your acting ability. And then you want somebody who can make the sound, really good. You want somebody who can, help you make sure you're delivering it on point. So there's definitely going to be some financial, like, investment in it. But once you have that step, it's like, okay, I have a demo reel now, like a fully fleshed out, like, really professionally done demo. And from what I've talked with and the few agents that I've ever talked with, that's a huge step.
Yeah, that's a really big step.
Yeah.
Although here's a big misconception when it comes to pricing versus validity.
Mm-hmm.
Just because someone charges a lot of money, that doesn't always mean
Mm-hmm.
that they are like guaranteed to be
Yeah.
like the best for your buck, because that's what we've been doing like in the industry, in the indie scene when it comes to like demo reel production, because we have a lot of people out here who turn out like a really incredible product for like not as much as you'd often see a studio charging for a demo reel. And if you want to go to a studio for your demo reel, that is perfectly fine, and there is nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's best not to go in there with the assumption that spending hundreds of dollars will just give you like the best demo reel you could possibly ask for. Because at the end of the day, what if you're not even that experienced in voiceover, like don't even understand your own voice, or essentially like what if you don't have the best home studio setup?
Right.
What if you don't really what if you're not really that interested in voiceover and you're just kind of like doing this to you're like doing this on the side? There's a lot to really pack in when it comes to this, but overall it's best not to go in thinking, oh, if I spend more money, then I'll get the best things. But because there are some people who've been doing audio engineering, directing, and writing for years, but they don't charge that much. And I think that's more like a self-worth thing as opposed to really
Right.
a credential sort of thing, because there are some amazing people out there who don't charge as much as they should, but it's more so because they probably think it's better to like be more generous about it, about like offering your services, than really charging more and like making like an honest living out of it.
Oh boy, if I had had a dollar for every time I had heard somebody in the artist community online saying you need to raise your rates.
I
Oh
know,
man,
yeah, basically.
it's insane that so many people are willing to do such amazing work for so little. Like, one of the other members of that other podcast of mine, I commissioned him to do an art piece, a Warhammer 40K inspired piece of one of my characters. And I think he only wanted like $30, but he does this job that's like $100 freaking dollars, because like you can zoom in to like a 10% portion of the thing, and you can still see some incredible detail of all the fur and like the background explosions and
Oh
such.
my
I'm like,
God.
dude, do you not know the meaning of self-control?
I know. See, there are some people out there who deserve more money than what they're really charging, and you can really tell who's more talented than they're letting on.
It's amazing that so many people do that, and I'm like happy that they get so much joy from it, but at the same time, I
Support them as best as you can.
yeah,
That's what I always think.
for me, it also comes with this sort of like level of concern, sort of for them of like,
Right.
are you going to be able to support yourself at this rate? You know, like with how much see so many artists that talk about like how hard it is to make ends meet and make that rent payment, or they have a vet bill that they need to try to pay for. It gets disheartening sometimes because so many of them just can't make it off of that alone, or they're just like, I don't know, maybe it is a competition thing, maybe they're just not charging enough for the kind of work they do. But it's like, it can be rough, and that can still apply to voice actors too. Like, so many of them can be burnt out really quickly, and still just like not make anything to support it.
As far as rates go with voiceover, that's also a big problem because my buddy Reese Bridger of No Studio in particular, he would definitely talk about this problem here. There are some people out there who you can really tell there are some people out there who just make it abundantly clear that they aren't as confident in themselves as most other people, and like they will sell themselves short at every given opportunity. And the worst thing you do is go to a paid opportunity and ask, oh, I'd be happy to free if given the opportunity. Because not only does that like show what lack of self-worth you have as a talent, but it also damages the chances of other actors who actually want the compensation. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with wanting money for your hard work. And so and that's the thing. Like, there are some actors who don't charge as much as they should be, but at the same time, you have to understand, like, if you're being compensated the same amount as, like, say, someone who's been working for 10, 20, maybe 30 years, maybe more than that, that's good. Like, you got hired because you're that good, because they wanted you. Like, take pride in that. You should be paid the same amount as everyone else. Don't shortchange yourself. Like, do not undercut your value just because, like, for the sake. Don't call it modesty either. Like, I know when people try to be nice about it, but there is nothing wrong with wanting to be compensated for your work. And if you're getting paid the same as anyone else, like triple, like double, triple, quadruple your experience, just take it. Like, you earned it. It's yours. Like, don't be afraid to take it.
It can be difficult sometimes for that kind of like, how do I describe it? That kind of like selflessness sort of is like, it does feel really good to be able to help people, but it's also, you got to be careful about it. It's another thing that was brought up here before, in that what's that saying? You don't set yourself on fire to keep another guy warm or to light another man's path.
Oh, that's a good expression.
Yeah, it's one of those like, that's kind of where I get this own like philosophy for myself, in that I want to help, but I'm only going to make the effort to help you out if I'm able to, because if I destroy myself in the process, then you're the only one that I'm helping at that point. Nobody else gets to get the kind of benefit from my help, or the help that I can direct someone else to get you to. It does a lot more than you might think it could.
Right.
But you also, like, it's not that you should also think selfishly on it. I'm not going to go out and say, piss off.
I'll only help you. Only help you only if I get something out of it.
Yeah,
that's an asshole mentality right there. Like, I'd rather not do that. Like, I'm willing to help if I'm able to, and if like, for example, with a passion project, if I really see the spark in someone's work and I'm really like fascinated by it and I want to help, then yeah, I'll extend a hand. Like, I'd like to, like, even if Yeah, because there are times where I've seen someone with an amazing idea in their heads, and I'm like, I don't care if I work for free. This is awesome. Like, or even if like, I don't care if it's low paying. I'm here for the passion of it. Like, I mean, yeah, I'll take the money, but like, still, this is like, here, I'm here for you, bruh.
Yeah, it was like, what was it? I think Dave Capdeville once said that if anybody wants him to voice a character, if that character is a skeleton, he'll do it for free. Mostly because
Mm,
you would expect something like that to be like, maybe a couple of lines and it's just an extra. I'm sure
Fair,
I'm sure
yeah.
he'll have lots of fun doing that for the like 2 minutes that it'll take him to do. And so for things like that, it's kind of like, yeah, it's funny. It's kind of cool sometimes when that happens. Like, as I mentioned, Stamper, he basically just kind of did voice lines for people who wanted to put something up on Newgrounds, which he was working for at the time. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of like, that's another thing that kind of blows my mind when it comes to the voice acting community is so many of them do so many different things that aren't just voice acting.
Right.
You see so many tags on their like Twitter profiles, for example, voice actor, and then you see like in the case of like Patrick Mealy, casting director, or Jill Harris, writer. I believe Kennedy Phillips is also he's a audio engineer and a voice actor.
Mm-hmm.
They so many of them do so many different things, and it leads to so much talent in so many different ways. Which for me is kind of like I feel kind of like a one-trick pony almost, just doing voice acting and podcasting. But it's like the amount of talent that comes out of people in so many different ways is almost mind-blowing sometimes when you actually go around, you look around, and you see what they all do.
Well, yeah, like you can't exact think of it like this. You know the expression "man can't live off of bread alone."
I feel like I've heard that before.
I believe it's an expression from the Bible.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was an excerpt from the Bible. Yeah, so essentially, it's just like the devil was testing Jesus, and yeah, it has something to do with like bread. One cannot live off of bread alone. The point of it being that you can't really just do one thing. You can't have only one thing and then just like expect to like live off of that the
Mm-hmm.
entire time. Like, for example, take me for instance. So I'm not just a voice actor. A writer. I'm also a writer and an artist. With art, I mainly went to school for my artwork and
Cool.
graphic design, and I've been taking a lot of commissions when it comes to graphic designing, especially when it comes to Twitter banners. And
Hmm.
as of late, I'm way more active with my artwork because this summer I got my current computer, and oh my God, I've been going feral when it comes to just like when it comes to drawing and digital art again because I missed it. I haven't been doing it in a year or so
Ooh.
because my last computer broken screen. So
Oh.
yeah, so I was MIA when it came to my artwork, but just know I have been still in the game now. I'm continuously making graphic work.
Oh man, how did you come across did the monitor just die or did something happen to it?
Um, okay. It's gonna,
Oh, oh
this is
boy.
gonna be really stupid,
Oh.
but okay, so I used to have a MacBook Pro, and apparently at some point I accidentally like closed the screen on the charger. And
Oh.
yeah, and then it just like cracked like the bottom part, and then just like it started just like glitching out like crazy until like the until at some point the screen just like stopped being, and it's like the screen just stopped being available to me.
Oh no.
Yeah, and it would cost $500 to replace the screen, by the
Damn.
way. Yeah, Apple
Oh.
products are criminal. Apple products are criminal. It costs about as much to get. Oh my God. You know what's funny? This computer I have now costs way less than the microphone I bought. I know, right? My current microphone cost way more than the computer I'm using it on.
Oh man.
That is wild, dude. Like I
That
can,
is wild.
uh,
Jesus.
but I mean, $500 now that I'm actually like saving money doesn't even sound that bad. It sounds like an emergency thing,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd rather spend $500 on an actual emergency than on my computer, especially an Apple product. No, no, not anymore.
I used to work for an Apple facility in my town, and it was like a shipping, receiving / warranty center. Basically, we'd serve everything from Seattle to Texas, and everything to San Diego and Los Angeles, and everywhere in between. And some of these, like I was on the watch line, and so many of these look like they would operate just fine, but there were some of them where they would just like not turn off at all. And most of these that we were shipping out, dozens upon dozens of Apple Watches a day, all of them going out with these little pamphlets that say your watch is not like the warranty is not applicable to your watch for this reason or that. So it's some of these just get nuts that warranty can't cover it. And when you look at the price of an Apple Watch, unless it's like the first generation, it's not going to be cheap.
Oh my God, that is so bad.
It is nuts. And I feel bad for so many of these people because there are a lot of them that come through. Although it's hilarious. It's hilarious at the same time because some of these you can tell are obvious fakes.
Oh God,
Yeah.
really?
Some of those people do try to slip through every now and then, but they're usually pretty good at catching that. And it's like, okay, I cannot be on your side with this one, dude.
Oh my God, the world is so screwed.
It's hilarious because they still get the really nice little basic box that the watch sits in, so they still get a nice something out of it, even if it's basically useless to them.
Oh my God, that's so bad.
Yeah, when it comes to app, I picked up an iPad recently, so I can try to get started on art myself. And I picked up a pencil with it, and what I told them was I need a tablet because my home setup for recording is not the most convenient. It's my recording space is in a corner of my room, but my computer is on the direct opposite side of the room.
Yeah,
God. My room is not set up for the most optimal recording solution, so I make the best.
Wait, are you using a desktop or a laptop?
Desktop.
Oh,
if it was a laptop, it'd be a different story.
Yeah, okay. You know what? That makes perfect sense. I was gonna suggest if you did have a laptop, you could just pretty much do what I was doing and just put it in a closet. You could just work with a closet. Your clothes could also act as an additional acoustic.
That's what I do actually. Is the corner of my room has a bookshelf in one wall of the corner, and then the other wall of that corner is like a quarter wall, something like that, and then one of those dual sliding door closets. And so I've got all these clothes on their hangers behind them next to my gecko tanks, and then I just pull this microfiber blanket across the opening.
Oh my goodness.
I find ways to get creative, and it used to be that I would pull my mattress off my bed to make one of the opposing walls, but now I don't do that anymore, now that I have a couple of my own panels to work with.
Oh my God, that's wild.
Yeah, well, when you got to make your own solutions, you get creative.
Well, I'll be damned.
Yeah. So it's you'll find your ways to make something work. And so that kind of for me, that makes me a little curious as to what your first recording setups were like when you got started. If you're all right with sharing that.
I am. It's just wow. Looking back, it wasn't exactly the best. Okay. Nope. No footing around it. So I didn't have the best environment in. When I started voiceover, I was going to college at Texas A&M Commerce, and I was in an apartment with my older brother, and the noise pollution around the area wasn't exactly the best environment to really A, save my sanity, B, record anything, and C, oh boy, yeah, that it didn't help that back then. Well, back then I had I had a desktop mic, a Bumblebee desktop mic. So, and then I upgraded to an AKG C214, and well, I was so, oh man, it was wild. I don't know how to articulate it because like it was a dumb experience getting into voiceover the first time around,
Oh
but
man.
oh my god, oh no. Okay, so I learned from a friend of mine who's no longer in voiceover anymore that okay, it took him explaining it to me, but when I first got my HKG C214, I was positioning it wrong.
Oh.
Yeah, I had it flat down on the I had it facing flat down when I was recording when I should have been like having it standing up. Thankfully, because he explained that to me, I could finally use the mic stand that I had at the time. And then I kind of worked from there, but I didn't exactly have any small rooms to really record in. So like, and my closet was like one of those really thin ones. It's like, ugh, how do I explain? It's like you have a big room, but then like your closet doesn't even like have that much space in it.
Yeah, I
Oh yeah,
definitely
that
do.
that one. Oh my god,
Oh.
it was trash. It was so trash, and I could barely even use it unless I was like positioning my. No, I couldn't even use it. Like it's like I had nothing. I didn't have anything to like stand my computer on, and it's like I was either recording on the near the desk or I had to record when I was home alone
Ooh.
so that I wasn't screaming in my room. But I was kind of also afraid that, because the whole neighborhood was noisy, it was like, I don't know if the neighbors are going to like call the police on me. Oh,
Jeez.
God. It's funny because at some point when I decided to go to school at UNT, I transferred from commerce because reasons I will not explain here. But when I transferred to UNT, I decided to go back and live with I am so sorry. I have been stuttering all over the place.
I know how it is. I've been doing it the whole show.
Oh my god, thank you. But I decided to live with my parents while I was attending UNT, and thank God for that because that's where I started using their walk-in closet to do my recordings in because it was perfect. It was this long, narrow hallway filled to the brim with all our memorabilia and their clothes. And it isolated so much of the sound. Like you could not tell that
Ooh.
this was not recorded. But fun fact, that's where I recorded the Lackadaisy short film.
Hmm. This was quite recent then.
Yeah. It's like last year and the year before. No, mainly last year. Yeah. It was like, no, last year and the year before. Yeah. Because last year was 2020. So that was like before we actually moved to our current apartment. And now not only do I have my own room, but my own closet that I'm currently talking into.
Oh,
All
jeez.
is right with the world. I'm thankfully in a position where I have my own room and I have no one bothering me anymore.
Oh, man. Oh.
Damn, I finally have some privacy in my life. Because I remember for the longest time in my entire life, I hadn't had a room to myself since elementary school.
Yeah, I had to share a room with one of my brothers. I have three brothers, and there was a house that we were living in up until I was like 19 or 20 when my parents divorced. It wasn't thankfully for me it wasn't one of those like explosive divorces.
Oh, okay.
It was just stressful around the time because we were packing up to move. Uh, and it was um yeah, for a number of years up to that point, I had to share a room with one of my brothers, and it was always just like I can't stay up anymore. I can't watch, I can't watch these VHS tapes of my favorite movies anymore. And then I can't just like stay awake on my iPod Nano listening to music to sleep because they can hear it through those old, iPhone head or iPod
Oh,
headphones that
God.
did not block any of the sound from getting out. So they heard white noise and got all kinds of pissed.
Yikes.
And then I'm 29 now. I've been, having my own room since, but even then, not the most soundproof walls when I'm living with my dad.
Ew.
So I still have to be careful then. I didn't even bother trying to do voice acting then, although to be fair, it did not become an interest for me at that time. But if I tried then, it would have been nuts because like just talking with some of my friends on like Skype or something like that, he could still hear it. And I was like, "Can you tone down on the swearing, please?" And I'm like, "Crap." So
I
it's
mean, I'm glad that my parents were like much more supportive of me when
mm.
it came to voiceover, and even when they could hear me shouting and all that stuff, they didn't really.
oh
It wasn't that big a deal.
oh
So,
the shouting. I have not ventured into the realm of shouting for voice acting yet, and it's like the only times I've heard people shouting so far when it comes to voice acting is either in any anime I've seen up until like 2015 or 2016, because that's when I was still watching it up to that point, or recently through podcasts. Like probably the most obvious example to a lot of people would be the Honeycast with Michael,
mhm.
who shouts like you would not believe. I think he has found like the perfect way to actually shout without without doing it in a typical way that hurts people's throats.
Right.
I think he has found the right way to do it, because I remember he popped into a VC at one point. I'm like, how do you not like destroy your throat for like 3 days doing that? He's like, what, the screaming? I'm like, what the hell? And he does this all the time, apparently, from what I
Jesus.
understand, at least. I could be getting that wrong, but damn, it's like it almost scares me to think of the idea that I have to do shouting at some point for voice acting. I'm like, what am I gonna do when I have to start doing that at some point?
Yeah, it's a complicated situation when it
Yeah.
comes to shouting because I mean, if you want to get into voice acting, you will most likely have to do shouting. And
Mm-hmm.
luckily for me, voiceover was a really good way of helping me kind of get out of my comfort zone, learn to, start communicating and talking with people on a regular basis. And
Oh
so
yeah, I
yeah,
know
because
how
I
that
was
is, my
very walled off against other people. I just
yeah.
did not want to talk. Oh my God. High school was like the most silent I had ever been in my entire life. It just
Mm.
did not, it, looking back, it didn't feel good. So by the time I got into college, I felt so much better, actually just speaking with people again. And it's just, you know, it's really, it's a lot to really take in, but
I think
I'm
it's
better off. I'm better off now than I was back then.
I think it's an amazing skill that kind of like, even if you're not like quote unquote successful with voice acting alone, it does so much to help you with that like social aspect of it, because you start to learn kind of like how to speak with people, and like different ways of communicating depending on how much voice acting you've done. Because like for the longest time, I've been one of those like curmudgeonly, people suck, I don't want to deal with people kind of thing. And I started last year when I got into a fan community. I met these people in this other podcast, and they got started with that. And I'm like, what am I gonna do to make this interesting enough that people want to keep coming back to listen? And it starts getting to me like, I gotta start like actually being open with talking with people again. And ever since, I have been, I found myself. I think I went from like 4 Discord servers or something like that, when I started in like 2018, 2019, to
Mm.
I think recently I hit the cap of Discord servers I could be in until I was a part of the Nitro service.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it for me it was weird how much I've like grown socially because of the voice acting, which is to me very like, if you had told me I would be in this position like 3 years ago, I probably would have slapped you and told you were being absurd.
I know. I feel that too because voice acting has actually really helped me a lot when it comes to the social aspect, especially with jobs that I've had and school. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what? From the technical aspect, it's also given me like some of the best straight A's that I've ever had in my entire life because there are projects that expect you to present something and like hell I wanted to, put myself on camera. So I decided to do a bit of editing on my end and just, make it a narrated sort of presentation.
Right.
Ugh, but
Now, with all of that, you said you lived with your brother, and now you live with your parents, and you've grown a lot socially, at least from the voice acting. But that kind of leads into another question that I wanted to ask you about is that, without being, I don't know the right word for this. Um, I guess what I'm trying to say is without being like rude about it to the best that I can.
Right.
You are, of course, a person of color
Uh-huh.
that works in the entertainment industry, and so one thing that I haven't been able to really like try to learn about from others' personal experiences, at least, is what the general life of a person of color in the entertainment industry is like. Because over the last couple of years, we've heard so much with things that have been just like terrible things that have happened, to other black people across the nation. Like even
Mm.
in my town over here in Sacramento, there was a very high profile case of that happening to, I think it was a black teenager here in Sacramento. And so one thing I get a little curious about, um, for the sake of my own understanding, is what is it like in the entertainment realm for a person of color? Like,
Mm.
obviously, I'm not going to fully understand from your point alone, but it's kind of like an idea of what it's like. So,
Mm. Well, the thing is, I can only speak from my own personal experience at the moment because that's a much bigger question than I was really expecting.
mm-hmm,
But at the same time, my experience isn't going to be like everyone else's experience, but I do try my best to really listen to other people's experiences, especially people like me who've probably had like much worse experiences, especially depending on the directors or the companies or like other fellow colleagues who've like probably done some terrible things, but then
mm-hmm,
lately they've just been kind of like acting like they're like all sugar and bubble gum about it. Like, because I heard last year, like after some peeps have like spoken up about the mistreatment that they've had from studios back then, before the pandemic and everything happened,
mm-hmm,
that they were not given the best treatment. And like I said, like I mentioned to you on Twitter, there are other people who would like explain it in a much more eloquent way than I probably could. So I'd recommend just like listening to other people and their experiences if you have the opportunity.
oh, absolutely. It's because like as far as I can, as far as I can tell anyway, because not everybody likes to share their faces, or some guests have decided like they've opted out of sharing details about themselves entirely, which is completely understandable.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, to the best of my knowledge, in regards to my guests that I've had, I've only had one other person on the show who's a person of color, and he's a Twitch streamer. Um, and even then, he's for the most part, he just enjoys being a part of a bigger YouTuber's kind of like friend group that frequently appears in those videos. And he's kind of told me a brief like sum up of his life growing up, where he's lived in places like Baltimore and then in various parts of DC. To the point where I believe he said he actually has stared death down the barrel of a gun before.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's for that's the best of my immediate recollection about that episode. But for me, it's kind of like tr- uh, trying to understand it a little bit better. How the entertainment industry can treat people of color is something that I don't feel I know enough about, and that I probably should try to learn more about. So, if, like, just general things about what it's like there is kind of something I've tried to go for because, of course, I try to learn about the entertainment realm with this show. So
Mm.
I guess probably a more directed way to ask the question is there any particular experience, I guess without details at least, that you, for obvious reasons like NDAs or anything like that, you don't want to share? Are there any particular experiences in regards to you being a person of color that stand out in the industry?
Okay, with more thought added to it, then I guess the biggest issue that I have right now is that lately thankfully, there has been much more pushback to really put more inclusion behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And people often assume that when we do get vocal about this, they just assume that we just want to like box everyone who's a person of color into like a different category, and it's just like that's not the case.
Mhm.
No, like whenever we get upset that, a white actor gets to play people of color, it's because we know for a fact that people of color behind the scenes, they don't get as many opportunities or even like the same opportunities as white actors to really, audition for the same sort of characters. Like,
Right.
for example, you can be a white actor and get to audition for literally every character that's being handed to you, including like, all the black characters and everything.
Mhm.
You could be a black actor, and depending on the person in charge, they could either just send you all the black characters only, or like they can only just give you like a handful and
Mm.
like a handful of roles. Like they probably wouldn't even consider you for anything else outside of that. And it's just you could really tell there's like some bias that's going on. And you can't really say that the best actor gets the best actor gets cast when, oh, I don't know, you have a full cast of like 90% white actors, when like there's a whole slew of people of color in the industry, behind the scenes and everything. And how can you say that? Like that's the most offensive thing to me, like assuming that, oh, there aren't any real talented people of color in the
Mm.
industry. 'Cause it's more so something I see on social media especially, but I have yet to really experience that in the studios directly. But something you will notice, especially with fans who push back against what you're trying to explain, is the idea that, like you're just doing a job, so why should you care so much about it? Like, no.
Mm.
No, when we talk about these issues, we're not talking about the characters. We're talking about the people behind the characters who are not getting the same opportunities as everyone else.
Right, because the actors are the real people, the characters are not.
Yeah, it's like they treat us like we're only just voices, but at the end of the day, we're people too. Like this is our job. So essentially, us asking for better treatment is not the end of the world. And the people who treat it like that, try refuting that without making it clear you have some low-key racial connotations going on.
Do you think there's any kind of like, I guess, advantage in regards to making it like more of an equal opportunity thing? Because voice actors aren't usually going for a role based on their appearance, it's always based on their
Mhm.
vocal performance. Do you think there's any kind of like benefit to the idea of equal opportunity in that regard?
Equal opportunity in which sense? The fact that like any actor can go for any opportunity, or leveling the playing field so that actors of color get spotlighted for a specific, for a more authentic representation, something like that.
Um, I think it's. I want to say it's kind of like a little bit of both. Probably more of the former.
Mm.
Partly for part. I think it's partly what you mentioned a little earlier in that. A casting director will notice that an actor is a person of color, and so they'll throw all the black characters at that person, or just that handful of other like maybe not major lead roles or anything like that towards that person, because I feel like sometimes depending on the person, if they're not like really like truly understanding what they're on about, that can kind of backfire on them, and they think, oh, this it's a black person, so they're only going to be capable of acting for black characters.
Or just like they might not have the voice of or they might not have the voice of the main character, and they just often assume what they believe is having a black voice.
Yeah, so I would kind of like, my initial thought would be that because it's voice acting, it's not like based on the physical appearance of the actor, it's based on the audible part, that they might have like better chances of that level playing field in regards
Okay,
to
well, the
roles.
thing. Okay, so on the surface, that would seem like the case, but another issue is like sometimes people before passing go, they'll essentially just get stopped from getting the opportunity before they even get the.
Ooh.
How do I explain it? I'm trying not to rush into this because it is a really delicate issue here. Ask the question again. So, okay, right. So, equal opportunity if is there like a benefit to if everyone was given equal opportunity?
Right, because you usually don't see the voice actors' faces if I can recall.
Okay. Okay. Okay, this actually does also depend on who's in charge because ultimately it also depends on like which directors are more conscious of racial issues and like are willing to really give chances to people of color. Like for example, Caitlin Glass at Funimation, she has actively put in the effort of like hiring people of color as major characters in the shows that she directs and like even going out of her way to really spotlight actors of color
Mm-hmm.
even if it's not like for like a diversity thing, it's just like for a general sense. Like she believes that people of color have a chance to like make it into the industry if they wanted to or if they had the opportunity. And it's
Okay.
like and it's one of those instances where it depends on the people in charge, not so much as the opportunity of like getting to audition into the void.
All right.
Because at the end of the day, there is always a person that's behind the choices. Like there's always going to be someone who determines who gets the roles, and well, it kind of is just pretty much you can't really say it's a luck of the draw sort of thing because someone else is manually picking who they feel is the best fit, and if that person just consciously picks white people all the time to be the same, to be like the voices of all the main characters when there were like probably a ton of people of color auditioning for the same opportunities, it really shows the bias that's going on.
Right. So it's like it sounds like people can like consciously keep it in mind at least. Um, how people can fit the roles, but also like basically actively checking your bias or if any of it might exist subconsciously or not.
Right. Like essentially, okay, I think I remember the point I was gonna make. So essentially, it's like it's like the mentality of white is right. The mentality that it's only natural that the main character is voiced by a white person. But then it's like that doesn't always have to be the case, right? Like, so this is something I made a point on. So the idea of black actors playing non-black characters, like or specifically like white characters, even. And it's
Mm.
like, if they can pass as a white character, why is it that this doesn't? And you say equal opportunity, then why is it that this doesn't happen more often? Like, why is it that black actors who play white characters are the minority,
Right.
like a minority in a minority? Like, if this was a common thing, if there was really equal opportunity, then why is it that we don't see it that often? Like, why is it that oftentimes, whenever a character is initially played by a black actor, they would end up like getting replaced with white actors subsequently?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, for example, characters like Sonic the Hedgehog, Penny from Inspector Gadget, like
Right.
they
Jaleel
were
White and
initially,
Cree Summer.
yes, exactly. They were initially played by black actors, but then every voice actor after that was white.
Hmm.
It's like it felt like a trend at the time, but it's like if there was really equal opportunity, why don't we see more diversity going on like in the future? Like, why is it
Mm.
that like you can't say that literally every actor who's played this character just happens to be white when you like I'm not even asking like they be played by all black people. I'm just asking how have I never seen a Latino actor playing Sonic the Hedgehog or like a Latino, Native American, Arab, like anyone who's not white? Like how have I never seen that before?
I
Hell,
mean,
like if when you look at the Sonic the Hedgehog voice cast over the years, diversity has kind of like lessened over the years. Because back in the day, when you could say equal opportunity, that you could at least say like some of the black actors that were like spotlighted back in the 90s were gaining huge traction, like
mhm.
Jaleel White and Cree Summers. But as time went on, not anymore. Like,
Mm.
no, like you really don't see that anymore in some of these like bigger franchises.
Yeah, for me, the initial thought of like why you don't see more of them is like, and I always said for me the initial thought was that not a lot of people in the black community wanted to go for roles like that. But as time went on, I started to go to like, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of them that do want to get into
A
these kind of
lot,
roles.
a lot. Like, bruh, if you wanted, you could just ask how many black people want to be Spider-Man. And yeah, a lot of them want to be Peter Parker, but it's like a lot of people want to be Peter Parker, but don't mind being Miles Morales, you know? Like
Right.
it's like, Peter Parker is the one they grew up with. So everyone loves Peter Parker. So if you
Right.
gave them the opportunity, they would so go for him.
Like alternate universes exist for so many different things. Like there was I don't remember the name. There was an artist that loved Kiki's Delivery Service a whole
Oh,
hell
I
of a lot.
remember that.
And she did a I think this was discussed in one of the last it was either one of the last episodes or it was in another Discord server with some friends, but she decided to draw I guess I don't remember if it was
Kiki is
herself.
black.
Yeah,
I think
something
yeah,
like that.
she drew herself as Kiki.
And I don't know why, but people were just ribbing on her, just completely flaming her for being a fan.
It was gross. And like there were some people who made some racist depictions of her art. It
It
was
was
really
it was weird, and for me, it's kind of like I just look at the art because I enjoy looking at all these different artists. For me, it's like seeing all these different imaginations and all these different visions that people have and the different talent people can contribute. And for me, it's kind of like the consideration as to what color their skin is usually is in regards to, without trying to stereotype what, what kind of maybe not upbringing, but
upbringing or
what kind of environment they more likely grew up in. Kind of like I don't like I said I don't want to try to stereotype, but that's kind of like it's one of those unfortunate things that we've more or less been taught over the years is that this is where they're usually from. But then you start to see all this different talent, like that artist we were just discussing.
Mhm.
Amazing art. I'm like on par with so many other artists that could be white, could be Hispanic, could be Asian, whatever the case. It's the same thing with voice actors. So many of them, like yourself, you've got I think I've heard you. I know you've got quite a range.
Thank you.
I just like for me, if you've done recent anime roles, I can't tell because your Twitter banner is a lot of anime characters, and I have not watched a lot of anime in the last like 5 or 6 years.
I haven't been in that much anime
Yeah.
though. Like I've been in Horimiya as Kakeru Sengoku and ending in My Hero Academia.
Hmm. That last one is the one that I've heard more about than anything else.
Yeah, funny enough. That's
Yeah.
that's crazy. It's like I have a
It's weird.
larger role as Sengoku and Horimiya, even but guest starring in My Hero Academia, that's what definitely puts me on the wall.
It's weird that that's the case, but at the same time, I could probably listen to you and probably not immediately guess that it's you because voice actors do actually put the effort into having a unique performance about it. Maybe they want to try out a different voice to fit that character, and that's what they were selected for. Like one of the cool things about Lackadaisy is that everybody's playing cats. How do you racially stereotype cats?
You can't.
You can't. That's the thing. It's like the closest one you can probably get to is the I don't remember the actual name for the Siamese cat, but even then, it's like if that's where you go to and immediately stick like a full on like Mickey Rooney Asian voice on that,
Oh,
that's
gross.
gonna be more about who put that voice on there than
Yeah, that's the interpreter, not anyone else, not the
yeah.
original artist. Like, no,
So
that's a
yeah,
you issue.
yeah.
But the thing is, so I'm glad you brought up voice because something I was worried about when I got into voice acting was like the possibility that I would get boxed in
Mm,
because I was black. So it was like starting out, I wanted to make the best first impressions and then just essentially make it so that I didn't appear like how other black people were presumably treated at the
mm.
time. It's like, oh, if you have opinions, you're thuggish, or if you speak out, then you're being what's the
I
word?
think I've heard like ungrateful is one word I've heard a lot of,
It's
especially opinionated
something
people say.
It's something that pretty much means like you're a feral person or something like that.
Uh,
Well, either way, it's like if you're black and you show any sign of resistance, then you're essentially you're essentially like a haywire individual. And it's
mm,
like I really do not like I hate that mentality though, because I didn't want to appear that way. But like as time went on and like people were finally speaking up on the matter, I didn't care anymore. Like I
mhm.
decided to actually just embrace my personality instead of just trying to capitulate to what other people demand of me. And it's just I'm not afraid of showing that I'm black, and I'm not afraid of getting black roles because it doesn't phase me anymore. Like
Right.
at first I didn't want to just solely get black roles, but at the same time I'm not opposed to them.
Do you think it's possible for people to do that boxing in thing without like intending for it to be like a racist thing? Like, uh,
It can be unintentional, I'll be fair. Yeah, it's something that can be unintentional, but it's what the discussions are for. Like
right.
you can have people from the groups you're representing discuss with you what they could possibly want in the future. And having a like learning to represent different groups properly as well as like having a lot of them around, that can really help like mitigate the issue of like bleeding into stereotypes and all that stuff. Like it's all about understanding the group that you're representing and like doing your research, doing your due diligence, and just like communicating with them. Because people seem to act as if research means going to the entire library and like reading everything possible. Like instead of just, talking to different groups,
Hmm.
getting their input, just, learning some basic facts, like just, looking some stuff up on the internet.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as people make it out to be. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It kind of comes full circle when it comes to writing. Like if there's something I don't fully understand, I'll look into it as best as I possibly can and just like, find some different examples if possible,
Right.
just to kind of like, understand what I'm working with. Because it's okay to not know everything, but it's not okay to openly be ignorant.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things that I find myself dealing with, not just in terms of like the racial discussion, but just like anything in general. Like the other day, I was talking with one of my brothers because I wanted to find more ways to help this show grow as well as the other podcast, and he starts immediately going off and like, so dude, you gotta find like you said you want to talk to game developers or go into like a small studio and see if you could talk with them. Don't immediately shoot for the big people. And I'm like, dude, I've kind of already figured this out a year ago because I don't want to seem like I'm a clout chaser. And the idea of networking, I've already kind of got that figured out because there's a couple of these, circles that I just like found myself being a part of just by talking with some of these people and, being open, not like pushing for something specific, just kind of hanging around and enjoying being around others because things will eventually fall into place. When it
Exactly.
comes to the voice acting thing, I can make friends and get networking done just by hanging around in a Discord server for like the voice acting club and get into calls with people and ask them for their input, find myself having extended discussions with them about something, and before the end of the night, we have each other added as friends on Discord, possibly following each other on Twitter or whatever the case might be. And that right there is either a friend or at least a connection because
Hmm.
you're both cool with each other. You've talked, you're knowing more about each other and your limitations. And that's kind of one of the major things about it is you got to know your limitations on things. Like for me, it's like I know I can't go out and do a voice. Like I don't have the same like vocal range that somebody like Kellen Goff has, right?
All right. Oh my God.
His range is absurd, and in an ideal world, I would be able to have as wide a range of voices as he does. But I also know, at what point my voice starts to hurt when I try to do a voice, and I know, okay, I can't do that voice for an extended period of time, and many of these big jobs will probably need me to do that. So at that point, I know, okay, I can't do that voice. it's going to be left to somebody else who can, and that's probably going to be ideal if this, animation or game or whatever it is will come out looking and sounding its best. And that's usually what the ideal like job of a casting director is to find the best voice for the role.
Mm-hmm.
And as you usually do, you like to help people make their voice demo reels to make them stand out in their demos, because they should, like, if they are the best fit for that character, they should show that, and the casting director will choose them on that if based on what the character is.
Yeah, because ultimately with a demo reel, it's pretty much just think of it like an invitation. It's pretty much just to help you get your foot out in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are times when directors don't even want to hear like a full audition, or at least not yet. So having a demo reel is like a good thing to have at the time. It's not the end all be all, because there are a lot of people who've been like in the studios for decades that don't even have demo reels. But at the end, it's just like it's something that can help you get a leg up, especially when it comes to agencies, because they will most likely 90% of the time, 99 maybe, will need a demo reel from you.
Yeah.
Preferably a commercial reel, but overall, having demo reels is definitely a huge plus for you.
Oh man, commercial reels. I've had classes before with I'm not sure if you've heard of Reed Rudy.
I don't think so.
Let me try that again. Reed Rudy.
I don't think I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's a voice actor based out of Los Angeles. I've had a couple classes with him, including an in studio thing for I think it was like one of the first couple he did in the later half of this year, when things were starting to wind down a little bit in California in terms of the pandemic. And I finally got to meet him, because when I took his main class, that was all on Zoom. That was like at the middle of the pandemic. So it was interesting, but when I finally got to go to the in-person like his in studio workout, which is a separate like extension of his house.
Oh wow.
It was a lot of people who do work in like the audiobook like space for voiceover work and commercials, which Reed does a lot of. Apparently he's like one of the lead voice acting guy or voiceover guys for the NFL. And
oh my god,
what blew my mind was when I first signed up for his classes, I did a little research into him, which when it comes to any acting coach, do a lot of that. You want to find people who have experience in acting and are still active, which he very much is. He does a lot of commercials because apparently this guy has been acting, including on camera, for decades. To the point where I found on his list of credits, I think he had like a 35 episode stint on Days of Our Lives.
Oh wow!
It was funny for me when we were in the middle of the classes. It was like a 6-week course, and I bring this up, and he just immediately started like kind of laughing. He was like, "Oh, those are the fun days. If they wanted me to come back to that show, I would accept that in a heartbeat." And I'm like, "Damn."
I feel that, yeah.
So, but yeah, that's one of the other things is commercial demo reels are really interesting, because that's a lot of what we did when I was taking classes with him, is that you're focusing on, it's kind of like an entire episode, but you're acting it in the course of like a 30-second like commercial bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to do all that acting and figure out how to more or less sell this product for these people.
Right.
And it gets really fun sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
He's giving me scripts to do the workouts with. I'm assuming he has permission from the sources for all these. And they just get really fun sometimes. The last one I did with him just had everybody in the studio cracking up by the time I was done.
Oh snap.
So it's like, it's really interesting, and if I could go for more commercial work, I would, because from just that little workout, it just felt so fun.
Oh my god, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. So I would try to explore that more if I could, but for right now, like I'm just trying to like actually enjoy narrative things where it's like it's a story, it's somebody's vision that they want to share, and if I could contribute to that, that's cool, that's amazing. because I get to see how it comes together. I get to see more of where it's going, things like that. Um, I had not heard of Lackadaisy until you and Son and Tracy and Fable all showed up on the Honeycast, and that was an incredibly fun episode to listen to with that. But then I look more into Lackadaisy, and it's like it's cats who are actually illegally running booze in the Prohibition era. How can this not be fun?
I know, right? But you know what's also crazy about it though? Like half of the cast is so thoroughly diverse without even trying.
Oh my god. It's let me see. Jason, whose voice is almost terrifyingly deep.
Oh yeah, yeah, he is amazing.
Song Wong Cho, who was give me a second
He
on
is
this
phenomenal as Mordecai.
one. Mordecai, damn it. Brad is also a guy with a surprisingly deep voice, who's
I know,
playing Rick.
right?
Like holy crap! And then just like as we said during the initial episode with the Lackadaisy crew, Michael playing Rocky is almost like it's that's bordering on typecasting if it's not already.
I know, right? He's perfect as the role.
It's amazing to see all the different energies and performances people can contribute to it, and you don't even know, the type of people that are behind, or you can listen to the voices for it before you ever hear about who the cast list actually is. I think they did that with the latest Resident Evil, where what's the big lady's name?
Lady Dimitrescu.
That's it. Thank you. I don't think anybody knew who the actual voice actress was until this random day where she posted on Twitter, "I am the voice actress for Lady Dimitrescu," and it's like, okay, let's see where this goes. I hit follow. This is when at that moment it was like 240 something followers. I checked later that day. I think it was like well over 3,000.
Oh my god.
And it's like, okay. And I was
Fair enough though.
some of that for some of that time I was wondering, I wonder what kind of person the voice actress is. Aside from all the memes and like simping people do for this character,
Right.
it's kind of fun to guess, but you also wonder how good is the talent behind it, and then how diverse is the talent behind all of it. I don't know much about how. I don't think it was Konami that did that game.
Capcom?
I think it was Capcom. I don't know their usual practices on it. I don't know much about Capcom, to be fair. But when it comes to things like it, I feel like indie projects might have more of a inclination for diversity.
Yeah, that is very true. Like there has been like a much greater push for diversity in the indie sphere as opposed to really. I mean, studios here and there are trying, but again, depends on the people in charge.
All right. One sec. Okay. Sorry, I had to check something. But yeah, I can see so many different studios doing so many different things, and it's interesting that bigger studios will. I don't know. I can't explain why it somehow feels more disingenuous that a big studio goes for diversity as opposed to an indie studio or indie project.
I guess it just depends on like how they go about it. Like you can have people from the inside offer like going out of their way to hire diversely, but if a company like, openly exclaims how diverse they are, that's where I draw the line. Like, yeah, because it's when they advertise it like, oh, hey, look, we're so diverse. Like, we care about people. Oh my God. Like, come on, join our family. Shut the hell up.
As opposed to like the indie projects, kind of like Lackadaisy, where they don't like openly talk about them being diverse. They just kind of say, so now's the time to announce the cast list. Here they are. And then they show up for podcasts. Kind of
like the application part, that is pretty much like, okay, we encourage having more diverse people like on board, and we'd encourage that, but at the same time, and it is still fair game depending on the situation. Like unless they're representing like a specific group of people, like the story kind of like demands like having a more authentic approach,
Yep.
then yeah, it's usually like fair game.
I've seen a
But
couple of them.
yeah, so it's like essentially there's nothing wrong with it. There really is just like nothing wrong with
Right.
like there's nothing wrong with the company wanting to like adhere to a more diverse background when it comes to the people they hire. But at the same time, you're not exactly going to get the best looks if you're going to like use them to advertise how diverse you are,
Mm-hmm.
because I've seen studios do that before where it's like they market the people in their diversity catalog, but like the actual execution,
Yeah,
honey child.
it gets dicey sometimes. I mean, it's like if it's something kind of like if it's something kind of like the Boondocks when it's run by Aaron McGruder, then obviously there's a focus for a reason. But otherwise, when it comes to like anything that's just like generic characters, or that's probably
I
not
mean,
the
if
right
it's
way to put
like
it.
NPCs or like they don't really matter sort of characters,
Something
then
kind of like that. Like if it's extras, you're
oh yeah,
probably
then
not
in
going to
that case,
focus more.
fair game. Like no one cares.
Yeah.
But it's just like for major characters though, that's where it kind of hits even harder because usually you advertise the actors that you're casting. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like naturally some people might get really put off if you hire a white actor playing a dark-skinned character,
Mm-hmm.
or if there aren't that many, you know, I'm willing to give exceptions here and there, but only if the cast itself is diverse enough to make that exception happen.
Right.
Like if you have like a mostly white voice cast and like most of the characters are ethnically diverse, that's a problem. Like
Yeah.
that means you really didn't put in the effort of like actually diversifying your talent pool. So, but if it's like 90% of the actors are diverse and it's like even if they don't really, this is a situation that's happened with me before where it's like we don't really fit our characters' ethnicities, but like the voice actors are like half of them are like really diverse anyways. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, it's not that big a deal. Like it's more so for the voice itself, but you actively put in the effort of like hiring diversely. So
And you
you
said
know
this is in regards to the talent pool being diverse or the characters being diverse?
the talent pool. As far
Okay.
as the characters are concerned, that's on the writing front.
Right.
Like that's on the writing front, but as far as like the actual casting process goes, it is a much dicier situation
Hmm.
because I remember there was a time when a friend of mine was casting for a project where she wanted more, she wanted like a more authentic approach to casting some of the characters
Mm-hmm.
because they were from like rather unrepresented groups.
Okay.
She got a lot of pushback. This was 2018, I believe. Yeah. So that was a dicey year. Oh my God.
Mm.
But overall, she got a lot of unwanted pushback, and it was just like, ew. It was not good. It was not good. Many of the people today really had some of the worst political hot takes. I'm not gonna lie. As far as like race goes, many of the white people in voiceover in the indie scene did not have the best takes at all.
I think it's interesting when people start doing that. If they like, if for me, if people like show an immediate um, I don't know if like an immediate 180 is like the first sign of okay, they're not actually trying to be dickheads; they're just clueless. Yeah. Um, I do have this belief that people can change. It's not going to be overnight, but if they've shown for a long time that they've been problematic, then if they decide to take a couple of years off and actively make an effort to change, and then they come
Mm-hmm.
back and they actually show it, then I'm more inclined to give them another chance at it. That for the most part, it's like people can't get away with that kind of behavior for a long time now because, especially true in the entertainment industry, people talk to each other.
Yeah.
It's
And people remember.
mm-hmm.
If you haven't like if you haven't apologized, made amends, or like openly explained like you're not about that stuff anymore, people are still just gonna remember you from like when you said something really based and terrible, and
Mm-hmm.
then they're not gonna forget that because like now you're not actively putting in the effort of explaining I don't believe in this anymore, or I didn't have the best take back then. Oh God, it was just
Yeah, and
it
it's
was a it was a dark time. I'm not
it,
gonna lie. I'm better. I'm glad we're better off now than we are back then.
yeah, it kind of gets me that it's like that thing of people talk to each other. It rings true across the industry, not just voice acting.
Yes,
People who are
absolutely.
directors, casting directors, or if they're, I've talked with animators who, yeah, who say, yeah, animators talk with each other across different
Yeah.
studios, and it's,
Uh,
game developers talk with each other across different studios. This is one of the things my brother brought up to me. He has a friend who works or worked for Sledgehammer Games. I think they were the people behind the Call of Duty Modern Warfare series, and they do talk with each other because they do have to work with other studios, and a lot of them do communicate. And the idea of networking is interesting because yeah, it makes connections, but those connections also let you know, okay, so there's this problem that's been showing up over here with X individual. I'm pretty sure that was the case with a particular fan community that I was a part of, and then it came out that this person who was basically in charge of this group um, wasn't doing the most wonderful things. And so it got to the point where we were just like, the other podcast we met in this community, and so when all this was starting to come up, we were like, let's let's not be around that anymore.
I know.
And ever since, we've been having a lot of fun. We've been meeting some cool people, and we look back on it and we go, that was a thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, at some point you will have to deal with people like that. And
Yeah.
it's a really souring experience. But you do end up becoming the better person because you're acknowledging that bad things happened like that.
Yeah,
It's,
it's from. I think it's also pretty interesting when people will acknowledge that they weren't the best people in the past, and they have they show actively, or rather, um, they're not like advertising or in your face about it, but they do
right,
actually
right.
show that they are not what they were back then, and they openly acknowledge it. That okay, yeah, I was like that, and I was kind of a piece of shit back then,
Right.
but it's that's not where I'm at now because I've actually learned things. And for me, that's as I've said, that's kind of the whole point of this show, is to learn more, not just about the people that are guests on the show. I'm not the type of person that likes to make ego a positive trait. It kind of get like having self-confidence can be a good thing, but if you're I don't like try to hype myself up, and I don't think it's like, if people are going to be here for hyping themselves up a lot without any reason for it, I don't like feeding ego. But
Mm-hmm.
learning about the guests, learning from their experiences in whatever particular field they're in, in your case, voice acting and script writing, in the case of other guests, animation, music and audio work, they've all had different experiences. And it's, for me, it's important to learn from all those experiences, because it kind of goes into the old mentality of our elders can teach us more from how things worked for them, because some things didn't work for them for a reason.
Mm.
Kind of like if I ever have kids and we're living in this like semi-developed area and they start building more houses, I'm gonna tell my kids, probably don't walk around in those around those construction sites, because you decide you're gonna
Yeah.
walk on those wooden planks over there, and you're gonna find a nail driving right through your shoe and stabbing you right in the foot like it did with me when I was a kid. So be careful,
Oh.
kid. For me, it's the same principle of they had these good experiences that they share, and it's kind of like, it's an idea of what you might look forward to, but there's also the negative experiences that you should be aware of, um, in that you should like, I don't know if it's necessarily something to actively avoid, but definitely be aware of it and know how to deal with it,
Mm-hmm.
because there's things that you're not going to avoid in life at all, because bad shit happens. that old saying.
Yeah, life happens, unfortunately.
Yeah. So learning to deal with the situation rather than just running from it, from at least in my experience, is probably the better option in overall
I
at least in most
agree.
cases. But yeah, it's great to have people on the show that are willing to share their experiences. And for me, I'm incredibly grateful that you took the time to join me on the show today to share your experiences, both in writing, voice acting, and as we talked about earlier, the at least from your perspective, some of the experiences a person of color can have in the industry.
Right. I'm
So
really glad that you I'm really glad you gave me this chance to really talk about it too.
yeah.
It was a lot of fun, and even though we were kind of over the place about it, I'm glad we at least got to talk about it instead of just like trying to, skirt around the issue.
Getting all over the place is something that I found I am not going to avoid, so I don't even fight it anymore.
Fair enough.
But
I wasn't the most organized for this, but you know what? At least we got to say something
it
about it.
tends to lead to some of the more fun episodes anyway. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I'm really happy that you took the time to come to the show and talk about all these things, and that I'm really grateful. Thank you for taking the time on this.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Yeah. So with that, I'm gonna say we're good for today's episode. If you liked what you heard today and you want to hear more from other guests that we might have in the future, possibly Bell if he feels he wants to come back and share more in the future. Um, we'll definitely give the channel a subscribe so you can keep up with more that'll happen in the future, because there's always more experiences to be had, to be heard from, and I want to share more of those for anybody that wants to follow these same paths: voice acting, animation, directing, whatever it might be. So, yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this episode today. Thank you again, Belle, for taking the time for this, and I hope you guys will come back in the future for more episodes. You all have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. Where's the button?
Take care, everybody.